Once upon a time, currently, it's hard to believe that television was a luxury item and that the image was only a few drizzles, very difficult to decipher. But time passed, and like other media, television became popular. Many brilliant inventions, television gave rise in the world of several researches over the years until it is ready to transmit their signals to the viewers. The first experimental transmissions were made in the mid 1920s. Experiments conducted in 1926 in England, Japan, and US in 1927 make it the beginning of the transmission of image and sound. As television was developed by several people in different places in the world, there is no consensus about the first official communication, but what is known is that AT&T was one of the pioneers to make the broadcast in the New York City, but at the time, 1927, only a few people had access to the transmission. In the 1920s, the first celebrities began to emerge and be very successful. Felix the Cat is considered the first character to have his image conveyed on the TV in 1928. It was used for the adjustment of the transmitters, as it was in black and white, then the perfect colors to fit the newly invented equipment. The design of the image transmitted in 20s were of very low resolution, in order that they were about 60 lines. Today, analog televisions have about 480 lines of resolutions, but after the first broadcast in 20s, the technology advances and never stopped to develop TV. The 13s served to strengthen the television. Events such as World War II, in a way, helped to boost the development of the equipment and the transmission technologies, as research conducted at the time was intense. Mod broadcasters had also emerged in the 13th. Channels as BBC, CBS, and CGT opened the doors for the transmission of the program. The television sets were beginning to produce on large scale, but from this decade, the resolution of the images has improved considerably, going from 60 up to 405 lines. Europe and USA were the forefront of technology in this time, and by the year 1936, the coronation of the King George VI is considered the first live broadcast in television history, and attended by over 50,000 people in London, England. Historically, television has been the boom in the 1950s. The appliances have invaded the homes of Americans, and idols like Elvis Presley gave impetus to the American way of life. Early in the 1940s, has made the first broadcast in color that has news and sport broadcasts, and the first TV news began to gain prominence. Even in the 50s, thousands of people had access to TV in USA Europe and Asia, and to joy of the Brazilians, it landed here with the help of the businessman Assis Chateaubriand. Tupi or not Tupi? The network Tupi, established in 1950, was the first television station in Brazil and reigned absolute over many years. To get your idea of the ground, Chateaubriand brought the 200 USA television set and spread through the city where people passing by the streets was mesmerized by the image and the sounds of the newest invention to land on land Tupiniquins. The explosion of television in Brazil can be seen 60 years after his arrival. In 1956, the country has had a significant number of 1.5 million units. The invention of the remote control early in the 50s spurred the purchase of television worldwide and also revolutionized the way in which they watched television. Even with the rumors of the color transmissions since the 40s, only in 50s that the color TV became popular in USA and Europe. In Brazil, in 1963, was made an experimental broadcast in color, but only in the 70s they came officially to the house of some Brazilians. Live broadcasts were common, but in color only in 1972 with the transmission of a typical festival of the city of Porto Alegre for TV broadcast. In the late year of 70, color television is beginning to become popular in Brazil. Already in this decade, the world can see that Brazil was a tri-champion of the World Cup, the end of the Vietnam War, and the end of the Beatles. Better resolution from the 70s and 80s television just went through a phase of improvement, considering that when new stations appeared and more satellites were launched from the transmission. But today we use almost the same transmissions model created in the 1920s, analog. New gauges have been popping up every year, and the models with stereo sound have been available since the late 80s. After that, investment in screens with increased resolution has become the flavor of the month, and the flat screen TV, plasma, and LCD have already reached the market in the late of 90s. The fact is that the great artists, events, happenings, and the history of the making was broadcast and watched on television, black and white to full HD television, not to reinvented himself and launched to the trends. Who sees the pictures of the 5-inch TVs thinking it's funny that we now have the opportunity to watch on screens over 50 inches? Besides the size of the screens, what is changing is the quality of the television. Digital transmissions marks a new age of the media, making the interactivity of the television with the computers. Not everyone knows, but the digital television was already studied and improved since the 70s. The cable TV had already adopted digital form since 1998 in Brazil, and the HDTV format, that is a Japanese model, was adopted in the transmission of TV in Brazil since 2006. Digital television, introduced recently, differs in several aspects of analog, used since 1920. The main difference is in the image quality, sounds, and interactivity. Satellite waves that your TV receives hardly suffer interference, so the famous showers and ghosts become a thing of the past. Besides improving the transmission, digital TV allows the transmitted image as much more definition, since it is possible to have more than 1080 lines of resolution. We can't deny the influence of television in the history of the centuries 20 and 21. It's strange that a small device could be so important in the life of a country like Brazil and, and a planet with over about 6 billion of people. Someone can say that television is an ideological weapon, which serves more as an instrument of alienation. That may be true, but it's also indisputable importance in the development of society and information sharing.